Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 underrated works by major composers that I couldn't live without. Now, here's the key when getting your list done. They have to be underrated, and they have to be by major composers. So this is not an opportunity for you to dig into the bottomless well of neglected masterpieces by people nobody heard of. They've got to be seriously major composers, important composers, and they have to be seriously important works. They just don't get the attention that we know that they deserve. So that's the gimmick. And if you can't do 16, don't do 16. It's perfectly fine. So here we go. You ready? Haydn, Stabat Mater. Now here's a piece that very few people know, but it's one of his major choral works and one of the major masterpieces of Catholic liturgical music in the 19th century. It is the largest setting of the Stabat Mater before Dvorak's. Those are the two biggies, and it's from his Sturm und Drang period, so it's extremely emotionally moving and intense. Really a glorious piece of writing. He wrote it as a thank offering to the Virgin after recovering from a lengthy illness. I mean, every bar of this piece drips sincerity. And, Haydn usually gets criticized for writing liturgical music that's relentlessly cheerful, that's funny even because he was so cheerful. And he even said, my music is cheerful because when I think of God, I get cheerful. That's the way I write it. A wonderful romantic thing to say when you think about it, because he's recasting the norms of liturgical music in terms of his own personal musical expression. People don't usually think about him in those terms, but in this case, they're applicable. But the Stabat Mater is different. The Stabat Mater, the poem itself is somewhat tragic, sorrowful, and the music is incredibly beautiful. And like all of his liturgical music, it's music of an absolutely sincere believer who has no hang-ups about it. It just is his reality, and he's expressing it. It's a work that really deserves to be better known. It's nearly an hour long. Quite the thing. And it definitely deserves to be performed as to, along with all the other more popular pieces of liturgical music. I mean, granted, Stabat Mater settings aren't exactly, the most popular ones, but Dvorak's gets a lot of play. Poulenc wrote a glorious setting. There are beautiful, beautiful Stabat Mater settings, of course. And Haydn's, as usual with Haydn, for reasons I can't understand, often gets ignored. So that's one. Number 2, Beethoven Symphony No. 4. Yeah, of course, all the Beethoven symphonies get played to death, don't they? But 4 is still underrated. Doesn't mean it's underplayed. There's a difference between being underplayed and underrated. The problem with the 4th is that it comes sandwiched between two colossal masterpieces, the Eroica and the 5th. Even, Schumann's stupid description of it always drives me crazy. A slender Norse maiden between two gigantic Greek gods or some stupid thing like that. The 4th is actually a dynamo of compact energy and excitement. The orchestration is smaller than that of the Eroica. It has one less horn and one less flute, but it sounds bigger. It sounds bigger in the tutti. It has 10 times the motive drive that the Eroica has, the force, because it's the symphony in which Beethoven finally mastered, first of all, his sense of proportion, which stayed with him for all the symphonies to follow, and also his feeling for musical motion, for keeping things going. The Eroica is known for having like that huge funeral march and the enormous first movement. But the 4th has one of the largest movements in all of Beethoven in terms of its formal articulation, and that's the second movement, which is a full-scale classical rondo in slow tempo, a very, very unusual thing. And the perfection of form is matched by its absolutely ideal proportions. It's not a second too long. It never seems to drag, as can happen with the Eroica. And my gosh, it's just exciting as hell. It should be rated at least as great as the third and the fifth symphonies. But of course it never is. And so I'm here to make the case. So there you go. Next, Schubert, his Violin Fantasy in C major, Deutsch 934. Now, Schubert wrote, a couple of Fantasia type pieces, the most famous being the Wanderer Fantasy, late in his career, and they're all marvelous. I mean, they're extraordinary works. And, and there's the Fantasy in F minor for piano, four hands. And, Schubert in fantasy mode was really pretty amazing. But he didn't write a lot that gets a lot of cred for violin and piano. There are the sonatinas, which are really full-fledged violin sonatas and which are marvelous. And then there's this late masterpiece, which it just blows me away every time I hear it. And it gets very little attention and very little favorable commentary, even from Schubert scholars. A lot of them think it's the weakest of his late chamber works, or one of the weakest. I have no idea why. I mean, there's never been, I've noticed any kind of justification for that claim, but it's made nonetheless. And it's an extraordinarily beautiful piece. It's right up there with the Wanderer Fantasy and these other pieces that people play every 10 minutes. Maybe it's difficult to get a violin and a piano together for a piece that's not called a sonata. That's always the case. Sometimes it's just nomenclature, and the nomenclature determines whether artists are going to bother with something, whether they're going to bother getting to know it. Now, we do find this work on recordings all the time of Schubert music for piano and violin. It fits nicely there, but it doesn't have that kind of reverence that late Schubert usually gets from the late piano sonatas or the quintet, or that kind of reverence. And I think it's worthy. It's fully worthy. Give it a shot. You'll see what I mean. Next, Rossini Ermione. Oh, this is juicy. Ermione is one of those operas. It's got like all the fabulous classic Greek people, like Orestes is in it, and those Pierrot, and they're in this opera. It's a tragedy. It's a tragic opera involving a love triangle and jealousy and attempted murder and all of that, really definite murder, all of this really good juicy stuff, with the heroine Ermione being one of the most gripping and powerful and passionate soprano roles that Rossini or anybody else ever wrote. The overture itself is fantastic. It begins with and it has an offstage chorus in it. It's integrated into the opera itself. I mean, it's a very advanced piece. Rossini himself was very fond of it. He kept the manuscript. I mean, he didn't do that very often. He kept the manuscript with him for his entire life. And at one point it was reported to have said something like that, Ermione is not going to be understood until 50 years after my death or something like that. One of those apocryphal prophetic statement type things. But it is a masterpiece. It's compact, it's exciting, it's full of gorgeous music, and nobody knows it. Nobody knows it because Rossini is always looked down upon as a, comic genius, which, is sort of a, almost an oxymoron in and of itself. And he's treated with condescension. It's like, ooh, nice genius, nice comic genius. Aren't you funny? Aren't you cute? Don't write anything serious. Try not to. Well, Ermione is a damn serious opera and a brilliantly tragic opera and a gripping drama. And if you like that sort of thing, listen to Ermione. You will be very, very pleased. I guarantee it. Next, Schumann, the Gesänge der Frühe, the songs of dawn, or the songs of morning, or whatever, early hours, however you want to translate it. Songs of dawn works pretty well. This is a short, about 15 minutes long, or 12 minutes. That's not long. 5-movement suite of short piano pieces that Schumann wrote just before he was committed. So you could argue that it was part of his crazy period. It's a very late work, and it's always struck me as just hauntingly beautiful. I'm not a big Schumann fan, I never was, and when I started listening to his piano works, I didn't have any preconceptions about them. I never quite liked Carnival. I love the Davidsbündler Tänze, not because they're named after me, but I just think it's an enormously fun piece. I love the symphonic etudes. There are lots of pieces I like, but I wasn't in the Schumann groupie class of listeners, but a lot of his late works really struck me. And they really did. I mean, they're austere, more austere anyway, less virtuosic, but somehow musically very, very moving, to me anyway. And the Songs of Dawn just do it for me. I can't explain why. And you very seldom see them programmed, and you don't see them discussed. I think they deserve to be. So there. And Mendelssohn, while we're working on people like that, Die erste Walpurgisnacht. Oh gosh, this is a masterpiece. It's fabulous. It's one of the great 19th century choral works. It's only half an hour long. It's been recorded 1 million times. It should be played constantly by choral societies. It's not hard to do. It's fun to do. It has wonderful orchestral introduction that's in the mood of the Scottish symphony. It's that Hebridean, North United Kingdom, Mendelssohn style. The story is wonderful. It's about a bunch of pagans who scare away the Christians on their big night of spooky celebration. The poem is by Goethe. I mean, it's got everything going for it. Mendelssohn himself, like everything he wrote, did not want to release it right away. He revised it, reworked it, and polished it. And he was a very, very self-critical composer. But this is just wonderful. It's a real discovery. It's so much fun. I mean, if you like the Scottish Symphony or the Hebrides Overture or any of those pieces, you're going to love this thing. You're going to recognize the style, and you're going to enjoy the story, and it just flies. In a very short period of time, it gets an enormous amount done. So that's definitely an underrated masterpiece. Liszt. Of course, Liszt, there are so many pieces that are underrated. You could argue that Liszt is underrated generally, not just individual works, but the historical Hungarian portraits. Another late piece, and a fascinating piece for me. Each one is named after a person from Hungary's earlier history. And the movements are, late Liszt, is interesting. A lot of it is about death. Like, disaster, that piece, Sinistra Disastro, that thing, or the, Lugubre Gondola, or Nuage Gris, and Forgotten Thing waltzes, and, Valse Oubliée, and, all of this stuff about death and darkness and forgetfulness and disintegration and horror. And, yeah, it's just fun. But this is not that. This is one of his Hungarian pieces, like the Hungarian Rhapsodies, but it's not a Hungarian Rhapsody. It has none of the flash, none of the faux gypsy elements. It's a refinement of the Hungarian musical elements, in terms of harmonic process. And often the writing is very bare and in sparse octaves and really remarkable work, powerful work, angular, craggy. It does have that quality of, you want to call it historical. It's historical because it's not, there's a primitivism about it almost. But it's still at the same time enormously sophisticated musically, as most primitivist works are. Think of The Rite of Spring. I mean, it's very primitivist, but boy, is it orchestrally sophisticated. The Miraculous Mandarin, it's the same thing. Well, this is somewhat similar in piano terms. Really a remarkable work. And the first time I heard it, I was stunned by just how strong an impression it made and how nobody talks about it. So there you go. After Liszt, Gounod. Oh, there's so much French music that's underrated. His Saint Cecilia Mass. There is one great recording of the Saint Cecilia Mass, Igor Markevich on Deutsche Grammophon. It has the fabulous credo that sounds like a Beatles song, with a boogie-woogie bass line. Oh, gosh, it's fun. I'm not going to sing it for you, but go listen to it. But, like so many French works, it has been ill-served by French artists. I mean, Markevich is the one who really did it justice, with the Czech Philharmonic, I might add. The French recordings are mostly on EMI, and all in their ways, in their various ways, are soggily played and very indifferently sung by the choir. I don't understand why they do such a bad job in France of rescuing their own great 19th century music. Well, they're doing better now because you have these Brutson performances and things coming out. There's some real money going into it. But there's no excuse for that. There really isn't. The piece should be recorded more frequently. It should be well known. God forbid the English wouldn't do it because it's French, and nobody else seems to care. And I wish someone like Robert Shaw had gotten his hands on it. That would have been helpful, I think, to just have a really, really great choir. Well, there's a great choir in the Markievicz performance, too. But it needs a fresh modern recording to let people look at it. It's a great setting of the Mass. It's wonderful. Yes, it's sentimental, and yes, it may have its tacky moments here and there. Oh, but so what? The music is affecting and brilliant and public and private. It's a masterwork, an absolute masterwork of 19th century liturgical music, and it doesn't get the attention it deserves. So there. Next, Brahms. Oh yeah, Brahms. Serenade number 1. You could also say Serenade number 2, probably, but Serenade number 1, really, for me. You know, Brahms only wrote a dozen orchestral works, right? There's 4 symphonies and 4 concertos, so that's 8, 2 overtures, that's 10, 2 serenades, and the Haydn variations, okay, 13. 13 orchestral works, major orchestral works. There are other works with orchestra, of course, but purely orchestral pieces. And so there's got to be an odd man out somewhere, and I think the odd man out is the first serenade, and I adore the first serenade. It is a work of such freshness and relaxed beauty, and that's the key, relaxed beauty. I mean, he spends much more time giving the woodwinds things to do. This was the work where he learned how to write for woodwind sections, and even the trumpets get the tune at the beginning of the first movement, something Brahms never would do in a symphony. Never in a billion years. You know, he had his symphonic style, which is actually more austere than the orchestration of the serenade, and that's why it's so much fun to listen to this piece. The tunes are fantastic. It is a little bit long-winded. It's like 50 minutes long, and it has 6 movements. And so, yeah, it can go on a bit. It can. But it depends on the performance. It very much depends on how lively the performance is. If you listen to, like, Haydn's with the Concerto, oh, it gives you a chill. It's so lovely. It definitely deserves more credit than it gets. It is underrated. And because we're talking about Brahms, we might as well talk about his opposite, Wagner. Some people have just said in these comments when we were making lists of composers that, Wagner was missing. Right. Here's a news flash. Wagner is not a favorite of mine. Big deal. Musically, he's a titan. I totally have no problem with that. But he's not a favorite of mine. However, his Faust overture is sorely underrated. There are, as you know, very, very few pieces of purely orchestral music designed for concert performance by Wagner. Very few, and most of them suck. The American Centennial March and this other, the crap that he wrote for, commission, for money, and didn't care about. But the Faust overture was originally going to be a movement of a symphony. It was written in the late, 1830s, early 1840s. And Wagner's own Symphony in C is dreadful. It's just awful. But he was going to do a symphony on the Faust theme, as Liszt later did. He abandoned it, and he preserved this piece as the Faust overture, the opening movement. And it's a very, very good piece of writing. It's powerful. It's heavy duty, serious, brooding, and intense. It's well scored. It's really the masterpiece of Wagner's youth in many ways. And most people would rather play the Siegfried Idyll, or the Ride of the Valkyries, or the Tannhäuser Overture. I mean, all of those are fun. The Meistersinger Prelude. I mean, there's plenty of other orchestral music that you can suck out of the operas. The Lohengrin Prelude, and the Prelude and Liebestod from Tristan. There's all kinds of stuff you can do to make some sort of concert thingy there. But this is a complete unity, uniform conception, and a totally successful one. Its proportions are correct. The timing works out. It's a beautiful piece. And you should give it some attention. You'll be quite, I think, surprised and impressed. It was a road not taken. And Wagner was right not to take it. I mean, he knew where his destiny lay. But I'm glad that he left us this work, and it should get some attention, some serious attention. Then, Tchaikovsky, Hamlet. Hamlet is a masterpiece. Most people admit it's a masterpiece. It's one of his great tone poems. Nobody plays it. I've never seen it performed. The only person who really got it recently was, not even recently, was Leonard Bernstein, who recorded it a couple of times, last with the Israel Philharmonic, very, very successfully. You get it in collections of Tchaikovsky tone poems and whatnot. It's as great a work as Romeo and Juliet. Or God knows, Francesca da Rimini and the March Slav and all the Capriccio Italia and all the more, famous shorter orchestral works. It's a big piece. It's more than 15 minutes long. It has some wonderfully healthy swats on the tam-tam. Yes, always a good thing when you're doing tone poetry. Spooky ghost music. I think the problem with Hamlet is that it doesn't have a tune like the love theme from Romeo and Juliet. It has wonderful thematic material, wonderful appropriate thematic material, and a very effective large-scale structure. But, there isn't a theme that people come away humming. And all the more popular works by Tchaikovsky, have to have one of those. They just do. And Tchaikovsky was very, very liberal in providing them. But in Hamlet, it seems to me there's an unusual degree of focus and intensity on telling the story and embodying the feeling of the story. It's just fabulously well done and sadly neglected, terribly neglected. Then Vaughan Williams, Sir John in Love. The opera, big fat Shakespearean opera on Falstaff. It's as good as any, just about, I says, great as Verdi's Falstaff. Well, I don't know. I don't want to make that comparison. It's a very different work from Verdi's Falstaff, but it's a very fine opera. It's funny. It's full of all of that, English folky modal music that Vaughan Williams loves. It's where he stuffed his Greensleeves arrangement originally. It's in there in Sir John in Love. So excerpts of it are known. But the entire opera, the complete opera, very seldom gets any play, and I don't understand why. It's a great English opera. Maybe it sounds too English. Maybe people don't want to credit an English composer for finally doing justice to a Shakespearean subject because everyone else was doing just fine with Shakespeare. But, you have to edit the text and it has to be in English, and all of the English literary people, they're like cockroaches. They just swarm on any composer who would dare touch Shakespeare. It happened to Britain with the Midsummer Night's Dream, remember? He fashioned his own libretto, and everybody trashes it because it's like, well, it's a Shakespeare setting, and who can do Shakespeare? And everybody in England thinks they know Shakespeare best, and therefore they become experts in musical settings of Shakespeare, and it just goes on and on like that. This is a great Shakespeare opera. It really is. And I hope that we see a little bit more attention given to it. It's only been recorded a couple of times, and it's gorgeous, wonderful. Next, Saint-Saëns, his Egyptian Piano Concerto. Of course, I talk about this piece all the time. I just adore it. Yeah, everyone thinks it's a little trashy. Maybe it is. Who knows? Because it has that picture postcard Orientalist second movement. The rest of it isn't, but the second movement is exotic, and so wonderfully exotic, and so beautiful and full of mystery and stillness and weird scales and a few soft taps on the tam-tam that are never loud enough, and you almost never hear them. And it's an incredible work, brilliant, virtuosic, full of great tunes, and it really, everyone considers it, even the people who like it. It's like, well, it's second tier because of its Orientalisms. No, it's not. It's first tier. It's first tier Saint-Saëns. It's amazing. Rimsky-Korsakov Antar, his Symphony No. 2. Well, this is, Scheherazade's orphan sister, or her brother, or whatever you want to call it. The study for what became Scheherazade eventually. It's another one of those Asian stories, another Orientalist piece. Rimsky never quite got it into the shape he wanted. It exists in like 5 different versions. You want the one that has the most percussion in the second movement, because the second movement, which is the gift of anger, that this, fairy thing grants Antar finally the gift of death. And it's just all very, very luscious and poetic. The tunes are first class. The orchestration is gorgeous, except in the second. The second movement is supposed to be anger, and anger is a fugue. Well, that's not a very good idea to begin with. It's contrapuntal, and so you really want to have all the percussion, the cymbals and tam-tam and stuff that Rimsky wrote into it, because it needs as much noise and color as you can give it to put over what is kind of a dysfunctional treatment of counterpoint throughout the thing. It's kind of funny. It's an amiable fault, let's put it that way. Then you get the march, you've got victory and war, and then you finally have love and death in the finale, the Liebestod finale, which is so beautiful. It ends quietly, which is a curse. But when this was played at the Paris exhibition, the 1888 Paris exhibition, Debussy heard it. The French composers were stunned by this work, because it did everything French music's supposed to do. It's supposed to be about the Orient. It's supposed to be gorgeously orchestrated. It's supposed to be full of juicy tunes and glittery surface polish. It had all of those things, and it still does. And it really deserves more attention than people give it. But it's a question of finding the right edition and performing it with the necessary conviction. Next, Debussy, his Fantasy for piano and orchestra. It's a great French piano concerto. We talked about it, actually, in the list of concertos. It was on a lot of your lists, and deservedly so. It's beautiful. People say, oh, well, it sounds like Massenet. Well, what the hell is wrong with that? I should sound like Massenet. You should sound like Massenet. Massenet is a good thing to sound like. It's just a beautiful 3-movement concerto by a composer who did virtually nothing in classical forms, and it gets almost no attention. And it should be played like any other piano concerto. And if I said, oh, Debussy wrote this great piano concerto, people would want to hear it. He was an amazing composer for the keyboard. Yes, it's an early work. Who cares? It's very finished and beautiful. And last but not least, Elgar, the Crown of India Suite, his greatest work. The March of the Mughal Emperors is the greatest thing Elgar ever wrote. Other people are kidding themselves if they think it's something like The Dream of Gerontius, some big, solemn, sanctimonious piece of religious hooey. No! It's the Crown of India Suite. That's what Elgar was happy doing. Imperialist folderol. Yes. It was something he did better than anybody. Pomp and circumstance marches. He captured that element of the British Empire, the good element of it, the part that left behind railroads and decent government, and when they weren't, engaging in the usual imperialist bigotry and rapine. There is wonderful music that Elgar wrote celebrating England, and we should not be ashamed of it. It's incredibly sincere and powerful and colorful, and between the March of the Mughal Emperors and the Dance of the Nautch Girls, whatever a Nautch Girl is, we've got one fabulous piece of music that should be played far more frequently. It should be played as often as the Nutcracker Suite. It's so much fun. It's just glorious. So there you have it, my friends. 16 underrated works. Underrated works that I just couldn't live without. They're so lovely and full of great music by major composers. Go for it and keep on listening. Take care.